Well, hope everybody had a great weekend. This is Carolina Weather Authority's meteorologist Joshua Nagelberg, and we've got a lot to talk about both in the short range and looking into October in the tropics here. So let's get quickly to it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest videos. I know it's been kind of a quieter week here in the Carolinas with that cool air to start off. We did have some rain, of course, from the remains of beta. Things are quiet now, but things are going to get extremely active here in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to talk to you guys about everything. We'll have a little bit more in the way of videos and articles to share with you guys. And if you're not on our Facebook page yet, we do have links to articles outgoing here across the next couple of days. We're looking at the threat for some severe weather and heavy rain. I'm going to talk a lot about that, and these articles, of course, are available on our website at carolinawxauthority.com. All right, so you can see our graphic here with the threat for some severe storms Tuesday into Wednesday. I'm going to start off with that, but I did want to show you what we're looking at down the road. Some potential trouble here in the tropics, which models are starting to at least get a little bit more under their belt as to what they think is going to happen, but maybe a 1-2 punch for Florida and parts of the southeast as we head into the second, third week of October, or the end of the first week of October for that matter. So we're going to get to that in just a little bit. By the way, these graphics are sponsored by KC Towing in Washington, North Carolina. Great guy, great business out there. If you're in Eastern North Carolina and you need the towing, go hit him up. All right, so let's talk about the severe weather first. We're going to look at the Storm Prediction Center. This is for Tuesday, showing right now a marginal risk for some severe weather Tuesday and Tuesday night. We do think there's a lot of ingredients in place where down the road we could have this upgraded to a slight risk. But again, some uncertainty in the timing of our storm. It's going to be kind of slow moving once it gets into the picture. So kind of a heads up for those of you who may have travel plans later on Tuesday or Tuesday night. Could be very active here in the Carolinas, as well as up in Virginia and into parts of the Mid-Atlantic region as well. Flooding threat, we already start to see some moisture creeping northward here today and tonight. Tomorrow, and especially later tomorrow night, we could have some heavier rainfall. Nothing really severe at this point, but definitely moisture gathering by tomorrow evening across the coastal plain of South Carolina, and as well as getting into the mountains later at night. Now, if we move that up a day into the Tuesday night time frame, we do see a much larger area potentially at the risk for heavy rainfall. And I do think some flash flooding could be possible by Tuesday evening, especially in the eastern half of this region. From pivotalweather.com, we see this from the Weather Prediction Center. And I would go as far to say as by Wednesday morning, still a threat for the eastern part of this area, at least starting off. We'll see how the timing of the storm works out. So let's take a look at the ensemble forecast system. This is the kind of the upper level pattern. I'll show you where things are coming from so you can look real quick. Today we did have an upper level low, which is starting to open up into a wave. That is heading eastward into the Western Carolinas tonight. And what that's going to do is going to draw moisture up the coast, coming up into the Carolinas here for Monday, with a bigger trough now spreading across the central part of the country. That's going to be responsible for some cooler weather, but maybe severe weather as well. So as we roll this into motion heading into Tuesday, that first disturbance weakens and lifts out, but a bigger long wave trough moves into the deep south on Tuesday and Tuesday night. With this flow coming out of the Gulf of Mexico aloft, this brings the risk for heavy rainfall, and also in this area of the jet stream, maybe some severe weather over parts of the deep south, perhaps Georgia into eastern Tennessee on Tuesday afternoon. And as we roll that forward into Tuesday night, you can see it slowly spreads eastward. And by Wednesday, until this thing gets out of our way Wednesday afternoon, we could still have some heavy rainfall, maybe some severe weather. So that's going to keep things active. Once that moves out, we've got a big trough that replaces it at the end of the week. That'll cool us down and dry us out, thank goodness. And we'll produce some pretty cool weather up in the Great Lakes Northeast region heading into next weekend. And then as we go even further, that trough still hangs out in the east, but now we've got a lower wind shear in the Caribbean, so we've got to watch for some tropical trouble coming in underneath that. And unfortunately, this model doesn't go out as far as I'd like to show you. Let me see if I can show you the 60. It may not work. Thought I had that loading. But anyway, we'll get into more of that down the road. So why am I concerned? Well, look how much rain we've had recently. This is the past week. A lot of this from the remains of beta, and a lot of places picked up 1, 2, 3 inches of rain. And some of these folks had some flooding the week before from the remains of Sally. In fact, I will show you real quick. This is, I know it doesn't look very good, from weather.gov. Observed rain over the last 30 days, and obviously the points that stick out are the Gulf Coast, where we had the remains of we had Hurricane Sally, and then those remains came up in our direction. We also had a lot offshore. And then let me see if I can zoom this in for you guys to see over the last 30 days. The pinks indicate 10 inches of rain has fallen in 30 days. And those of you, I think, in Darlington are sick of the rain. Also, maybe around Brevard and Pisgah Forest. Even parts of Raleigh and on north up into southeast Virginia, a lot of folks have picked up 10 inches plus of rain in the last 30 days. So that the ground is super moist, and more rain on top of it's only going to make things worse. So we've definitely got that potential to see that heavy rain. Let me move that back for you guys real quick. Let me show you the European rainfall totals. You can start to see here overnight tonight, some rain creeps up into the coastal plain, and then especially tomorrow, maybe some heavy rain in the same areas that have been getting it for the last couple of weeks, unfortunately. Potential for an inch or more around Florence and maybe around Columbia, South Carolina. Now, as this spreads northeast, it does start to flatten out. This is late Monday night. As we spread into Tuesday, the mountains are getting wet, and then later Tuesday and especially Tuesday afternoon and night, we start to see this threat for some heavy rain with inches 2 or 3 or even as much as 3.9 inches falling somewhere in this region in the coastal plain. And the rest of the area fills in late Tuesday night into Wednesday. In fact, Wednesday looks like it could still be wet. So rainfall totals through Wednesday evening could see amounts of 3 or 4 inches across a good part of the I-95 corridor here, and this spreads northward, by the way, into the Mid-Atlantic if you have family up in that direction. We'll focus on the Carolinas for this. Also, maybe some heavy rain back in the mountains. It looks like Charlotte and Greensboro are kind of at a minimum compared to the other two, and the same goes for the Outer Banks. That's on the European model. Let's take a look real quick at, and I had it up here a second ago, here's the GFS model, and you can see amounts are kind of similar as well. As we go into Wednesday morning, it's still raining, perhaps heavily Wednesday morning in areas just to the northeast of Raleigh, as well as maybe getting close to New Bern and Jacksonville. Amounts of 4 or 5 inches are possible. Wilmington could have a lot of rain as well. So between the GFS and the Euro, I think we do have the threat for some flooding in here. The GFS does not bring quite as much up into southeast Virginia as the Euro does. In fact, it's slower, but maybe this is more of an issue for Richmond, or maybe it just delays things until we get into Wednesday night. So this storm's going to drag out for a couple of days. What I did want to show you were the 850 millibar wind speeds, showing where the winds aloft are coming from. And as we look into Tuesday night, you can see a bit of a low-level jet here spreading northward across the Carolinas. And this is going to transport moisture and add some spin into the atmosphere. So we could have severe weather late Tuesday night in the eastern Carolinas, and then maybe a second push coming in on Wednesday afternoon. So we could have maybe 2 days of potential severe weather. Not everybody's going to get that, of course, but certainly something we're concerned with. And let me zoom that in for you guys to see here in North Carolina. By the way, do subscribe to weathermodels.com. That's a great site. We use it a lot for a lot of our weather forecasting. So let's show you the 850 millibar winds in the Carolinas. All right. So this is later on Tuesday, and you can see definitely winds picking up out of the southwest. Maybe some potential severe weather by Tuesday night, and then that first max moves out, but here comes a second one on Wednesday afternoon and evening. Until this gets out of here, we could have a couple of rounds of severe weather and heavy rain. And then real quick, I'm going to show you guys what's coming behind this system. So a lot of moisture early to start the week. Dew points are going to be in the upper 60s and low 70s on Monday. It's going to be pretty muggy. You'll need the AC. Tuesday, even muggier. It looks like low 70s dew points across a lot of the area. Here's our front moving into the western part of North Carolina late Tuesday. But notice how it slows down, and this piece of moisture comes up through South Carolina on Wednesday morning. It is not going to dry out as quickly as we'd love to see until maybe late in the day Wednesday or Wednesday night. And then some much cooler, more refreshing air is in place here by Thursday morning, and into Friday should be pretty comfy, kind of like it was here at the beginning of last week. All right, so we're going to talk more about that rain coming up. Let's take a look here at the ensembles. We'll show you this rainfall for Raleigh. Could be anywhere from 1 inch to as much as 3.5 or even 4 inches. So there's some spread in the models, but the average is around 2. Let's take a look at the tropics. And by the way, the waters are still quite warm over the Caribbean, the southeastern Gulf, and around Florida, as well as off the Bahamas. So definitely above average and warm this time of the year to begin with. Add to it above average. We still have ingredients that could come into place for busy tropics next month. Right now, nothing on the map. The models did show earlier there was a little bit of a yellow X from the third wave of Paulette that's starting to fall apart. Here you can see that spinning of Paulette. It's just kind of stalled near the Azores. But just another upper level low here and just some moisture spreading across the western Atlantic down to the islands. Nothing really of any concern right now. In fact, much of the Caribbean is pretty clear of any weather, but as this tropical wave spreads westward and we get lowering wind shear next week, things could definitely start to brew as we get towards Friday or Saturday, as some of the models are showing. There's another area that we're going to have to watch coming off of Africa. A lot of dry air in its way, so it could take a while to get things to develop. But the European model does show maybe as soon as really even 120 hours from now, so Thursday night, we're watching for development coming off of Africa as well as over the Western Caribbean. And then maybe a second area to watch behind it here in the Caribbean. So things are definitely getting busy with a system out here, which we're not concerned with yet, but maybe one or even two systems forming over here in the Western Caribbean by the end of next week and into the following. So let me show you what the models have been showing. The ensemble solutions right now, you can see as I put them into motion, a lot of uncertainty, but definitely a good likelihood of at least one system down here, maybe a second. This wave, not a threat right now, but could become a hurricane over the central Atlantic, so we're going to keep an eye on that. The GEFS, that's the ensemble forecast system, doesn't show anything to really be worried about through Wednesday and Thursday. Once this trough lifts out, though, and ridge rebuilds, now we've got potentially something forming as soon as Thursday night or Friday morning between Jamaica and Honduras. And as we spread this along, this system speeds up and by next weekend is already threatening Cuba and South Florida. That's just one of the ensemble members. Others are keeping it buried a little bit farther south and west and into the Gulf of Mexico. As we get beyond that, more uncertainty, but maybe a second system behind it, forming kind of in the same area. And again, this is something we're going to have to watch up the East Coast as well as across the Gulf Coast. One thing we do see for certain is that there's a big high blocking Louisiana and Texas from anything. So if anything were to come up, I think it's more towards Florida, Georgia, and up the Carolinas and East Coast, or perhaps even recurving away and missing the Carolinas if this high builds in far enough to the east. I did want to show you guys the last few runs of the parallel GFS before we get going and why we're showing that graphic. Again, nothing of concern through Wednesday, Thursday, but Friday maybe something forms. And here it looks like a quickly forming system near the Yucatan and becoming a hurricane into the southeast Gulf by the week after tomorrow. So Monday the 5th into Tuesday the 6th. And then this comes up to the Gulf Coast and falls apart. But, oh, by the way, here's something else forming near Jamaica and coming up and maybe threatening the Carolina coastline a few days later. That's the 12Z run from yesterday. The 18Z run from yesterday is a little different, but kind of shows those two separate systems. One coming up, hitting Florida a week after tomorrow, and then maybe threatening the Outer Banks, maybe going out to sea. Here's lower pressure behind it late the following week, coming up through Cuba and into the Gulf. And after that, we don't know for sure. Maybe the Panhandle, if this model is correct. The following run, though, looks a little bit different, of course, as you can imagine. We've got a development in the Western Caribbean Friday, and then coming up into the Southeast Gulf on Saturday, Sunday, and especially early Monday. And then maybe not necessarily something hitting Florida, but kind of stalling and putzing around. But a second system coming right behind it later the following week, maybe more of a concern for Florida and perhaps up to the Outer Banks. And then finally, the last run that I have available to me is a 6Z run from today. And again, we've got a hurricane forming in the Caribbean, but it's a little bit slower, coming up near the western tip of Cuba. And a week from now could be threatening southwest Florida and then maybe fading. Another system by next Wednesday, a week from this Wednesday, could threaten Cuba as a hurricane and come up through the Keys and cross Florida, and then maybe threatening the Outer Banks, maybe staying offshore. So the one thing for certain is if you're in Florida, you need to be ready to go later next week, weekend into the following week for some potential trouble. If you're in the Carolinas, we're just really watching at this point. Same goes for the Florida Panhandle on west. But definitely we are concerned and have these two areas kind of painted as some potential threats down the road. Not saying yet that's going to happen. You'll, of course, want to follow the Hurricane Center for the latest official forecast. But certainly we've got some trouble on the map here, and October is infamous for storms coming up through Florida and up the East Coast. We've seen that back in the past with storms like Michael and Matthew, certainly with Hazel as well. So we're definitely going to be on the watch for you guys here in the next couple of days for what could form by the end of this upcoming week or the following weekend. If you're in Florida, be prepared for some potential trouble down the road after that. All right, everyone, thanks for joining me and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We'll talk soon, and God bless.